Hello and welcome to the Growing Healthy Families podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Haggerty. On this show, I interview the world's top health experts so that you can know with certainty what it takes to give your family a life of epic health and wellness.
As parents, we don't want to see our kids struggle. I knew that he had the potential, and I knew that something needed to be done.
It was hard. We would get frustrated. We didn't know how to deal with it. I was more emotional about it.
Sure that, we're here. Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. Everyone, welcome to the Growing Healthy Families podcast. I am Dr. Scott Haggerty, and I am extremely excited for you to be a part of our podcast today because I have a treat for you. So today it is my pleasure to interview Dr. Patrick Porter, who is the founder of a company called BrainTap. Dr. Porter, thank you for being here with us today.
Well, it's great to be here, Doc.
So moms and dads, one of the main reasons that I wanted to bring Dr. Porter on is because I've been following his work and the technology he's created for quite some time now. And as many of you know who follow this, our practice works with a lot of kids with different types of neurodevelopmental challenges. And Dr. Porter's technology is something that I think many of you are going to find a lot of value in because he has something that can dramatically improve your child's quality of life. And, obviously if you're an adult that deals with neurological challenges, stress, anxiety, plus a whole host of others which you'll dig into, this could be something that can really help you as well. So Dr. Porter, first, thank you so much for being here today and taking the time with us. Why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about your background and your education and yourself, and obviously about your family since it's Valentine's Day.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'm married and I have 2 children and I have 2 grandchildren. So we'll be spending Valentine's Day with them so their parents can go out and have a nice dinner. So we've been doing Valentine's for over 35 years. So we'll let them go have the fun. My background, what got me into this actually was I was diagnosed with attention deficit. I actually kiddingly say I like second grade so well I did it twice. So I really think Sister Barbara had a crush on me. That's why she wanted me back in her class. But my dad got into teaching us about different things like the very basic parts of BrainTap because we didn't have what we have now. Mm-hmm. We only had sound, and we were trained on what's called GSR machines to balance our brain. And then in the 80s, I'm going to make this very quick so people can, at the end of the show, you're going to give them a link to get the book. They can read the history there. But I invented a piece of technology that balances the brain. And at that time, it was called the MC square because I'm a big fan of Einstein, as you can see from the picture mm-hmm. hanging behind me. And what we did was we've evolved that technology now. It's in its 13th generation. It's called BrainTap. And we do a lot of work with autism, but we also do a lot of work with just normal population. If people have problems with attention deficit, if families have problems with stress and anxiety, things like that, and fears, we have over 800 sessions dealing with very specific symptoms, and doctors like yourself will use it in their clinics and then advise their population or their clients or patients to use it at home. And it's nice because the whole family can use it. If a family's all stressed because one member of the family is going through a crisis, that family dynamic really shifts. So if we can lower the stress of all the family members, one unique study I'd like to share real quick is we did it with, there's a group called Thinking Mothers Revolution. And it's a group of mothers that basically they wanted to take the health of their children back because they were being told there's nothing that could be done with them. These were autistic children. And so I said, we can help them, but, it's really important that we help you because the mothers who deal with these children are suffering from a form of PTSD. Mm-hmm. They wake up every morning, they're stressed out, they don't really know what to do. So we did a study with the top 20 of these mothers that put this whole group together. And we found out that we could help them to lower their stress, manage their own anxieties and fears by having them do 10-minute sessions in the morning and then a 10-minute break during the day. And the neat thing about this study was we were able to lower their stress significantly. But the main thing was that once the children saw the parents using it, they started to use it. And we find that sometimes children, if they feel like they're being punished by doing a therapy or something, they don't really do it as well. But if they see mom and dad doing it or brothers and sisters doing it, they want to be a part of that. So it becomes a really nice thing for the whole family.
I think that's a fantastic approach because, obviously in day-to-day care here, that's one of the things that we see so many of our parents struggle with is that, the stress that moms and dads deal with is just compounding just with everything they have to try and balance in addition to the children's struggles. So, getting to the root of helping the family dynamic with moms and dads is just tremendous. So that's a brilliant idea to go about that because I know within our practice, it's something that we discuss on a regular basis is techniques to try and manage that. But when you can add that element into it, that can really change the family's quality of life at the root.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you start changing the way their nervous system responds to situations, if they're overloaded and they get one more thing put on them, they might react differently than if they're in a calm space where they can interact. Mm-hmm. We make better choices when we're not in such high stress.
Yeah, that's tremendous. So now your background, you have a PhD in psychology, correct?
Yes.
And so
go
ahead.
I was just going to say, you kind of broke up there a little bit. I'm sorry. What it is, I have a background in clinical work in doing that, and then I've kind of moved into my undergraduate degree is actually in electronics. So if somebody says, how did you make this connection between electronics and psychology? My dad actually used to run a program called the Silva Method. And that was a brain training system seminar that was given. And so growing up after the age of 12, that's what we did. Almost probably 2 weekends a month, we would go help my dad with these seminars.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So you really kind of the whole gambit. So this was a very natural progression for you, it sounds like.
Yes. Yeah. My dad once he got help, he was a very gifted alcoholic. So once he got help with that, he helped the family because obviously there's 9 of us. So, and we have one brother that's clean now, but he's the only one out of 9 that actually had some trouble because I think with the upbringing, and if you're trained that you have a choice, you don't have to follow in the footsteps of, genetics, in other words. So.
Amen. That's I completely agree with you. I also have some experience in that realm as well. And I definitely think it's very much empowering to feel like you have a choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Dr. Porter, as I mentioned, many of the children that we work with here struggle with ADHD, ADD, anxiety, sleep issues, impulsivity. So obviously, one of the things that we're trying to do is to create resources. So can you explain about, for a mom and dad who has no idea what BrainTap is, can you tell them about how their child's brain is, number one, give them kind of the overview of what's going on, but how BrainTap is able to intervene and how it can help to go and change where the brain functions?
Well, yeah, what happens is the brain loves patterns. So it creates patterns, then follows patterns. So they can be positive or negative. So when somebody has, let's say, attention deficit as a ray, what we know is happening in the brain is they have too much. Typically, if we did a scan on them or a brain map, we'd find out they have too much alpha, not enough beta. Beta is the brainwave that makes you focus and concentrate. Alpha is kind of the daydream, creativity kind of brainwave. Mm-hmm. So there needs to be a mix of that. Really, there needs to be about 40% beta and about 30% alpha. And then you have somebody who has heightened concentration and focus and energy. If any of these are out of balance, like if you have too much beta and no alpha, you would be diagnosed as autistic. That's what we find when we're doing the scans. So all of these brainwaves are important because when you have, for instance, most of our addictions and the behaviors that they see and why they play video games, and parents say they can sit behind the video game for hours. Well, that's because the video game's a beta program and they're getting a dopamine rush. They're literally being addicted to dopamine. Mm-hmm. So whether it's a single shooter game or Tetris or whatever they're playing, when they achieve that goal, the brain gives them a little hit because in beta, your brain literally tells your gut to produce dopamine. Mm-hmm. So people are getting addicted to that. Now in alpha, when you have hyper alpha activity, which is the daydreaming, creative person, your brain is being told to create acetylcholine. Now, acetylcholine, so if you think about it, we have the world's greatest pharmacy between our ears. And if it's working correctly, everything's firing on all engines, everything's perfect. But if it's out of balance, if we're creating too much acetylcholine, it's almost like taking a drug that spaces you out. So they have every intention of being focused and concentrating and all of that. But, when they're sitting there in their chemicals, the brain secretes these chemicals, they can't help but do what's happening. So there has to be that balance there. So what the BrainTap does is it teaches them one thing about what's really nice about working with chiropractors is there's something called the innate intelligence that they talk about their patients. And the body knows what to do. So when we work with a chiropractor, what's really neat is that they will do an adjustment, which we have found when we hook people up to EEG, which is how we measure the brainwave activities. We know that at that moment, you've done a break state. So their brain is stuck in this pattern over and over again. They don't know how to get out of it. So a chiropractor can interrupt the pattern, get it firing and wiring around this new change. Now, what BrainTap can do, which is really cool afterwards, it can do it without it or with it. We find it works better with an adjustment because now the physiology is correct. Everything's working right. Now, for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, however long the session is, their brain is actually firing and wiring around that adjustment. What's so important about that is if they just get up and they walk out and they go back to their old behaviors, or mom or dad gives them an iPad, or whatever, then what happens is the brain falls right back in step. That 3 to 7 minutes they were at the doctor didn't really make that much of a change. But when you go to these levels of the mind with the BrainTap, and it's all about sequential learning, just like anything we've ever learned, but the brain learns independent. It's called frequency following response. So we're going to use light, sound, and vibration, which the brain loves. For instance, if we take our children to a mountaintop, they start to get tired because the mountaintop actually functions at theta. Now, what's so important about theta is that's where the parasympathetic kicks in. We get tired, but also the brain instructs the gut to create GABA. So children don't usually have a problem producing GABA. It's parents that have the problem producing GABA. And that's why GABAnoids in the drug world are so important now, because they're realizing most people are missing things. So they're trying to synthetically create it. The nice thing about our body is it creates our own neurochemicals and likes them. So, but we relax really heavily. Now, if we go to the ocean where the waves are going and we hear that, or a waterfall, we're creating, again, acetylcholine, but we're creating alpha, we're relaxed. So the body's used to doing these, just kind of measuring its environment, calibrating to it, and then synchronizing with it. So a child who has, let's say, set up the wrong pattern, like they've set up this pattern of distraction, we can continuously increase that pattern, because as the brain learns to go through these patterns that we have created, we have algorithms. Every session in the BrainTap is different. And it's all about training the brain. So just like an adjustment, as they go through the training, they'll try to go back to what they think is their physiological norm. But the reality is there's a perfect brainwave out there. And Dr. Ann Weiss, who we've used for years, she's passed away now, but she's out of San Francisco. She created a book called The Perfect Brainwave, or The Master Brainwave. And from children to adults, children that have a different brainwave pattern than adults do. And there's a different brainwave for learning than there is for athletics. So that's why some people say, wow, that when they're in sports, they're super focused, they can do it, but you get them in the classroom, they can't. It's because they don't know how to shift gears. So it's like they've been given a transmission that doesn't matter what they're doing, it just drives the same way every time. So part of what the BrainTap does is it teaches them that they can downshift if it's time to relax. They can upshift if it's time to be in uptime. They can get into that zone state. But the brain learns independent of conscious knowledge. So a lot of people think they need to do this consciously. The reality is that when you learned a language, you did not learn that language consciously. You absorbed it, and your subconscious then fed it back to you. So Bruce Lipton, who's one of our teachers at Quantum University, he talks about how we're controlled by 95% of our subconscious, which means our autonomic system is literally running the show. And if we don't balance that autonomic nervous system, then there's not going to be a lot of changes happen. And that's where the chiropractic BrainTap connection really fits in, because as they both work to do that, 30% of the nervous system's in the body, 70% in the brain. And people like Heidi Havoc, for those listening, she's actually proving out that what chiropractors are doing is changing the brain. So there's a real connection there between what we're doing and you're doing as far as the physical side. We need the physical side, we need the mental side, so they can work together.
I think that's tremendous. It's funny because so much of what you talked about is literally our day-to-day conversations that we have here with our patients, talking about, Dr. Lipton's quote: "The function of the nervous system is to perceive the environment and coordinate the function of all other cells." And that's one of our core teaching pieces, is that, there has to be that balance point. Even some of the graphics we have up is teaching the ability of the nervous system to be able to shift gears and have that ability to perceive and then have appropriate responses. And so when the BrainTap technology is applied, you can really change the neuroplasticity of the brain at the deepest root levels by, when the brain is susceptible to change, to be able to go and really write those patterns and help the brain to be able to then make those the hard wiring or the new operating system for the brain. Am I correct in interpreting that?
Exactly. We have, with our BrainTap Summit that's coming up here in Raleigh, we actually have one of our doctors, Dr. Kelly Miller. We haven't done it with children yet, but we did it with the elderly because, one of the greatest fears is that they're going to lose their memories. And we find that they have the same problem as the younger kids. One hemisphere is actually moving faster or slower than the other. Yeah. And typically it's the left hemisphere. So with adults, their left hemisphere is running slower than the right hemisphere. For children, we're finding that their right hemisphere is running faster than the left hemisphere. So we're kind of having this, it's almost like the same thing at different spectrums of the brain. And we have BrainTap sessions that actually speed up the brain. And we have a technology that can measure neuroplasticity. We had with one gentleman who's 72 years old, and we have this over and over again, but he was the most surprising. At 72 years old, he couldn't even walk down the hall. His balance was so far off. But after doing the training and with chiropractic care and BrainTap, we were able to, in 60 days, to improve his neuroplasticity by 64%.
That's tremendous.
So that we broke up the old patterns and we started to create, what we really want is an open-ended opportunity pattern that says, what's the opportunity for me to do whatever I need to do, like as a child? I mean, when you have that curiosity, but not too much curiosity, of course. In the classroom, you've got to be able to tone it down, but that's really what's happening. And the brain at any age is very neuroplastic, if you will. It's able to change at any age.
Oh, that's tremendous. I mean, the windows of opportunity for the brain to change are just that you're creating are phenomenal. So that regardless of age, regardless of mental status, you can really have a lot of influence with technology on a person's function. So, obviously you've touched into a number of different things here, and I know we talked, initially about the ADHD and the ADD types of components. So obviously there's a really broad ability to go and change the brain. So for people who are watching this who may wonder if this is something that can help them, can you give kind of a broader overview of a lot of the conditions that would be positively affected by using BrainTap?
Right. Well, when they did a feature on us in People magazine in 2006, they wanted to know how people were losing weight with just changing their brain. So we have equipment that actually shows how the metabolism is sped up when you improve neurological function. Wow. So just by laying down for 10 to 20 minutes with the BrainTap, we've had about a 30% metabolic improvement. So that's really good. Now, we've helped people stop smoking because obviously in pattern or habit, there's a saying, you get what you rehearse in life, not what you intend. So we need people to rehearse it, but they need to rehearse it at the level of the mind known as alpha and theta. That's the state between being awake and asleep. And in that state of brainwave activity, you have what's called hypermnesia, supermemory. So that's where we learned so many things as children. We were in those states. And then as we got older, beta is very focused and reactionary. So we do a lot with things like even helping people get through dental procedures and surgery situations. We're in a lot of different hospitals. We have a school system actually that if you go to the BrainTap Facebook site, you'll see it's called the Creative School in India. They have 180 students. They have a BrainTap room with 12 BrainTaps, and they have BrainTap in every classroom. And they're getting phenomenal results with it because the children, when they get stressed, can go do a BrainTap session. And they actually call it brain prep in some of the schools in Orange County, California that use it, and also in Schenectady, New York. We have a school there that NBC just did a special on them. We're just a part of their component, but they're calling it a compassion project. So they're becoming more compassionate with the children and things like that. So, we have so many different things that we work with because the different doctor populations we work with, from working with stress disorders to autism to golf. I mean, we work a lot with the NFL and things of that nature, and professional soccer teams. We have a Sport Zone series. We worked with the U.S. Olympic team for gymnastics. So we had an Olympic runner Kate Grace, who ran the 800 meters. So all these people, you can do it to improve yourself. The golf game, they say, is played between your ears. So a lot of people don't understand that. But, you swing the club for maybe 5 seconds and you walk to the next ball for 3 to 4 minutes. And if you beat yourself up all the way there, you're probably not going to be in the right physiological state. So we have a lot of different programs. And the nice thing is that we're also in 1,800 clinics. So we get a lot of clinical data back from our doctors, what's working, what's not working. Luckily, we get a lot of what's working, and then we might have to adjust. Like today, actually, I just finished a program that's going out for PT care for balance, a whole session that's in our PT recovery program, so that once a chiropractor works with somebody that doesn't have good balance, they can listen to the BrainTap session for balance. So anything that they've done physically, like a physical therapy, we can then go ahead and support that with the mental therapy that needs to be done.
That's tremendous, boy. Just sitting here listening to this, it really, the world of possibilities that you've tapped into is literally endless. So thank you very much for the work you've done, Dr. Porter, because I think this is really revolutionary. I know I'm very excited about being able to go and introduce more and more of our patient population to this, but also for the viewers that are going to see this too, because this is really amazing work that you're doing.
Well, thank you.
So when a person does a BrainTap session, how long does a typical session take?
Well, we have sessions that we call digital coffee for the morning. They're AM sessions. But for children, we have sessions we don't call them SMR, but that's what they are. Sensory motor rhythm training. That's where your cognitive thinking is and thought process. So we have sessions. The children's sessions are typically 10 minutes. We have ones that are 15 minutes, like for the neurological chiropractic program. And then most of our other sessions for adults, the theta, which is to get rid of the hypertension, stress, and anxiety. Most of our sessions are 20 minutes that deal with that. We find that the sweet spot for the session is about 20 minutes. But for children, they don't need to go as deep, as fast, because they're already there. Most kids have a high degree of alpha. So we don't need to encourage more alpha. We need to encourage more beta activity.
Okay. So when somebody does a session, so what should they expect to experience?
Usually they have an offloading of stress and anxiety. They feel a lightness because the emotional component literally is weighing them down, or they feel a restriction, the flow state. If you were to come into our clinic here in New Bern, North Carolina, we actually have our heart rate variability machine. We do pre and post sessions with people, and we can actually show them, because we're taking something that's invisible, and we have to make it visible for them. Luckily for us, about 70% of the people that do a BrainTap session will actually feel a physiological effect. They'll feel like, wow, was that really only 10 minutes, or was that 20 minutes? Where was I at? We call these island time experiences, because when you get into the deeper states of theta, that's when you might have been driving down the road and you go, how did I get here? I know I got in my car and I know I drove here, but I don't remember the street lights. I don't remember what's going on. You're in that kind of deep alpha, maybe theta state. And so you're cognizant. You kind of put your body on autopilot. And that's really what you're doing with this. And you're really offloading that stress. Stress cannot survive in a deep theta environment. It's not and you're really creating that deep parasympathetic state that's necessary without going to sleep. Now, sleep is a different thing. We need to get people sleeping better. So a lot of people would come back the next day after even doing the demo and tell us, wow, I had the best night's sleep of my life last night, because they offloaded the stress. Think of your body like electric circuit. There's an electric circuit, there's something called a capacitor. So the body builds up this charge, then it has to discharge. Well, we don't want to discharge with negative things like drugs and alcohol and things like that, or with behaviors that are not supportive, like with children. That's why they're acting out. They don't know what to do with that energy. So if we can teach the nervous system to regulate that energy, it doesn't build up to the point where they get angry and upset and start abusive to children. They become calm and relaxed. For a while, sometimes it freaks out the parents because they go, what happened to my hyperactive kid? But they'll find out in 72 hours if they don't continue to do something. The brain, it takes about 2 years really to retrain the brain to get a new baseline. But every 72 hours, it's resetting. So we can get them playing in that new realm, but it's always going to want to try to go back until it sets up that pattern over time.
Mm-hmm. That's tremendous, and it's funny because I teach those same things here on a daily basis in the practice. But it's awesome that that's something that is really kind of illuminated on a regular basis with what the program does. So I would have to imagine that many parents who are watching this, they have to be sitting here saying to themselves, "Wow, I wonder if this will help my child." So for someone who's watching the podcast who wants to find out more, where would they start? How can they learn more about BrainTap technology for themselves and for their children if need be?
Well, they can go to braintaptech.com/thrive, which you're going to post in the notes, and they can get a free copy of my book. It's called Thrive in Overdrive. They can then they're going to get 15 days free on the app. And by doing that, they can try that out. Now, the app is only the auditory feature. Now, of course, if they're in your area, they're going to come into your office, hopefully, and try it out. But we have 1,800 clinics. So we have parents all the time. And most of our doctors are willing to at least let people come in and try it. So they could call the office here at 302-721-6677, and we can direct them to a local office in their area because that's what most people do. But the audio part, you can just use your own earphones. And some people will see, a good number of people, I would say at least 70% of the people will see a result even with just audio.
Really?
Yeah, there's a lot of good programs out there for children to teach children with just audio. What we find is that we can more or less supercharge it with the light, because there's a lot going on with the light. We're creating vasodilation, blood flow, circulation. We're helping to detox the brain, and there's a lot of other scientific things that are going on when you introduce light into the equation, especially 633 light and 810 light and things like that.
Oh, excellent. So obviously a lot of people who are going to watch this too are also going to be interested in following the work that you're doing. Where else can they find you on social media?
If they put in #BrainTap in Facebook or Instagram or any of those, we have a really good following on BrainTap. And both of those, we have like 82,000 people following us. And we post almost daily some news about the brain. A lot of it has to do with children and families. We have a really good support in Orange County. Her name is Dr. Joquita Handy. She has what's called the Children's Opportunity for Brilliance. So she shares with us, and she does a lot of the research with children for us. She'd be someone who'd be interesting maybe for you to have on the podcast at some point, because she's done a lot of work with families and children. She's a speech pathologist. She's a PhD in nutrition as well. So she's coming from that kind of angle, getting their body balanced and things. But we add things all the time. And I know about Facebook, but I know that we have a whole social media team. So they keep everything up to date here.
Well, we'll make sure we get all the social media links. I'll post it up here so that everyone can stay abreast of the work that you guys are doing and new developments, and just help to spread the message too. Because I think one of the things that every parent that I know that's dealing with a child with neurodevelopmental challenges, whether it's ADHD all the way down the road to autism, is they're a community of people that are looking for resources and anything they can do to improve their child's quality of life. They also love to share it with every mom because they need the help, and the community can really only get stronger when they have the resourcing necessary. So we are going to definitely make sure that we do everything that we can to try and help to go and drum up people to get to your community.
That's great. I appreciate that. And, one of the nice things is most of our business is referral or word of mouth. So we appreciate anything you can do. And that's where I came from. I was one of those neurologically challenged children. So that's our passion. That's why I do so much with children. And we support these different school systems. We have about 6 schools that we are supporting just on a personal basis with BrainTap.
That's tremendous. That's tremendous, because that's really, you can literally alter the course of the direction of their life by intervening at that place. So thank you so much for your generosity to those communities, because I know that's something that they, you can literally alter a child's future by doing those types of things.
That's great. Thank you.
So Dr. Porter, I thank you so much for your time today. This was great, and we'll definitely have to try and do this again, and especially as a follow-up where we can dig a little bit more into a couple of topics. I'd love to at some point dig in a little bit more into your work with autism, and then a couple of different topics here that we can really explore much deeper. Would you be interested in that?
Yes, I'd love to. Yeah, we'll just set it up and get it going. That's my job, get the word out there. So I appreciate it.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Porter, for your time. And moms and dads, if you're watching this, make sure that you go and check this out for yourself and for your children, and spread the word. When you've got people out there that are doing this kind of work who are really geared towards helping to improve your child's quality of life, we need to make sure that we're telling as many people as we can about this, and share the resources. And once you watch this episode, share this with a friend. Post that you watched it on Facebook, and share it to your social media sources so moms and dads can be made aware of this type of work, and do everything they can to help to improve the child's quality of life. So this is Dr. Scott Haggerty and Dr. Patrick Porter here on the Growing Healthy Families podcast. Thank you guys. God bless you, and be elite.
Thank you for listening to the Growing Healthy Families podcast, the world's #1 source for health education. Make sure to go to iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a review. Make sure to follow us on social media at the links listed in the show notes, and let us know what area of health you are struggling with, so we can get you and your family on the road to epic health.